Good evening, everybody. My name is James Hills. I'm the host of Java with Jimmy and also digital director for DeeDee's Cry. It's been a few weeks since we've been with you. We're coming back this evening, and I think the timing is most apropos given what's going on with the ban, the release of the ban on the eviction and mortgage or foreclosure, rather, moratorium, as well as what's going on in our economy. And we are approaching an election, and we are facing very interesting times when it comes to finances. And we're here tonight with DeeDee's Cry. And as you see, we have guests, and we are going to talk about mental health and finances. We are not going to do a lot of fanfare. We would like to acknowledge the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute as our fiscal sponsor for DeeDee's Cry, and we thank them for supporting us, and we thank you for tuning in this evening. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Brandy Brooks, who will come and give some context why we're here this evening and talk about finances and also mental health. And then we'll have some introductions. We're going to switch up a little bit. We'll hear from one of our guests, and then we're going to come back and hear from our founder. So if you would just take a few seconds, share this video. There's some great information. There's some familiar faces here. I'm familiar to one person here in a particular way, but we're going to have a great discussion tonight around finances and mental health. But without further ado, please give your attention to Dr. Brandy Brooks. But while you're doing that, please remember to share this live. Dr. Brandy.
Thank you, James. It does feel like it's been a while since we've all been together and had one of these talks. My name is Dr. Brandy Brooks. I've been in the mental health, public health space for the last decade and a half. I've worked as a contract manager, counselor, advisor, advocate, trainer, and now I am the director of operations for DeeDee's Cry. As James kind of set the stage, it is so important right now to be having this conversation, not only because of the things that James mentioned, but also we're approaching the holidays. And what comes with holidays and spending and expenditures. And so what I'm going to do in a few minutes is really just frame the conversation. I know my friends and I often joke, and we'll send text message back in the group chat. We'll say, ooh, I can't go out today because my money is funny, right? But being worried about money is not something that is germane to me or my friends. Many of us right now, especially, are concerned about financial stresses and the uncertainty around that. As James mentioned, the moratorium, the pandemic, we have historic unemployment. Is there going to be a stimulus package? I mean, there's just so much going on. And whether the financial problems stem from loss of work, escalating debt, unexpected, expenses, or a combination of factors, worrying about finances typically is one of the most common stressors in modern life. Even before the global pandemic, an American Psychological Association study found that 72% of Americans feel stressed about money, at least some of the time. And so the recent economic difficulties mean that even more of us are facing financial struggles and hardship. And like any other type of stress, financial problems can take a toll on your mental, your physical, your spiritual health, your relationships, and your overall kind of quality of life. And even with that, like, it just compounds things. You're worried about your finances, so you don't sleep as much. You're worried about your finances, so your self-esteem suffers. You're worried about your finances, and so your energy is depleted. And even sometimes worrying about your finances can lead you to be angry, ashamed, and it can cause problems because of that anger, that shame, that fear. Other problems are exacerbated. And because of that, you may resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as drinking, abusing drugs, gambling, just to escape. Because again, we all need some source of finances to get through our everyday life. And depending on the situation and the factors around and a person is dealing with, financial stressors can even prompt suicidal thoughts and or actions. But the thing we're going to talk about tonight and our panelists are going to illustrate is no matter your financial situation, help is available. And there are resources available specifically for our community. And so I'll stop talking now because I really want to hear from the panelists. So what I'll do is I want to kind of turn it over to Toy, the founder and executive director of DeeDee's Cry. And so Toy, if you could share a few comments with us, and then we'll get to our panelists.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Toy Burton, and I am the founder and executive director of DeeDee's Cry. DeeDee's Cry is named after my sister, Denita Shayne Morris, who died by suicide at the age of 23 in 1986. I started DeeDee's Cry in 2017 when I noticed that organizations that focus on mental health and suicide prevention didn't do their outreach in the Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan areas of Boston, which are communities of color, that I said, I'm going to start my own organization, and it's going to be mental health awareness and suicide prevention for the Black community. So I will be back later on. Like I said, we're going to introduce the panelists. James, take it on.
Thank you so much. There's the mic. It is a privilege and opportunity to have these guests. We have a wide variety of experience when it comes to finances, but one of our guests presumably is probably busy and cannot stay with us for the entirety of the session. But I would like to at least ask the folks who will come and speak with you in more detail later to start, and then we'll end with one of our guests who has to depart. So ladies first, we will start with Attorney Nicole Bluffort. We have been attempting, shout out to Nicole Maxey, who's been attempting and trying to get her on and talk about the need around financial stability and some things that she does. But Nicole, it's good to, I'll say, see you again, not meet you because, yeah, we don't mention that, but we'll talk about that later. Nicole, please introduce yourself briefly.
All right, thank you so much. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Beautiful. My name is Attorney Nicole Bluffort. I'm the owner and founder of the law offices of Nicole M. Bluffort. As many of you know, we have two office locations, one in Lynn and the other in Boston. The Lynn location is located at 583 Chestnut Street, second floor. Again, that's in Lynn. And our Boston office is at 101 Federal Street, Suite 1900. I've been in business for close to 9 years at this point. I started off as what they like to call a solo entrepreneur, me doing everything myself, the secretary, the biller, everything. And the firm quickly grew to what it is today. We have a staff of 8 people, including support staff from legal secretaries to paralegals to our attorneys. We are very known for being a general practice firm. So that is a law firm that practices in a variety of different areas, from real estate to probate and things like that. And I kind of want to really just go over, because I think, James, at some point we're going to go into it more. I do want to highlight on all the areas that I think is very much related to, mental health and whatnot. And then obviously we're here to talk about mental health and finances, and that's very much related to estate planning. So first of all, we definitely focus on family law. We're very much known for that. So that's not just your divorce cases, your child custody, child support cases, but as it relates to mental health, we do a lot of guardianship cases and conservatorship. So how that's related to mental health is that sometimes people need to actually have someone be appointed by the court to take care of their every needs, to literally take care of the person. So that's what a guardianship is. It's getting an independent party from the court or a family member stepping on your behalf because you are incapacitated. You don't have the mental capacity to take care of yourself. So we are a support system for a lot of people going through those kind of things. And the conservatorship is the opposite of the guardianship.
I want to chime in real quick because you went in, and we're going to come back and because there's so much in depth to go about the financial piece. But we want to do the intros and then come back and talk about the mental health and the finance piece in just a few moments. But I hear you. You're ready to go in and make sure folks are educated. So listen, I'm not mad because the more education we have, I think it decreases the chances of us dealing with financial issues which contribute to which take away from keeping a good mental health status, because we've been very deliberate about describing mental health versus mental illness. Chance, my good brother there, I'll tell y'all, he popped on the screen. I said, and I looked real quick. I said, wait a minute. I didn't know we were going to have BPD on the mental health and finances. Their finances is okay, but I'm going to leave that alone, Toy. I love you. I'm not messing. Chance, would you please introduce yourself? I'm going to be quiet.
Hello, how is everyone doing this evening? My name is Chance Santos. I'm the co-founder of Second Chance Financial Solutions. The main reason I'm here is because I had an issue with my credit and I realized that I needed to fix it. So I came across an opportunity to not only fix my own credit, but be in a position to help others also fix theirs. And I noticed that in the Black and Brown communities, there's not a lot of financial literacy within our communities. So this was a way for me to be able to reach out and try to help others, deal with their financial issues.
Chance, thank you so much. And Dr. Watkins, I don't know him that well, but he has his bow tie on. I'm a fan of bow tie, but every time I encountered him, he's been definitely an engaging brother, and he has to unfortunately leave us early this evening. So William or Bill, if you don't mind, whichever you prefer, let us know. We're all family here. Can you introduce yourself and then go a little bit? And after you introduce yourself, I'm going to turn it over to Brandy to maybe just begin some initial questions with you around mental health and finances. You work at ULEM. Shout out to the team there, and Dr. Motley, a mentor. So you're familiar. But please introduce yourself, and then Brandy, you can take it from there. Maybe ask a couple of questions as they correlate to mental health and finances. Dr. Watkins, take your mute off.
There we go. There we go.
Yes,
there we go. I'm ready, baby.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you, but especially to my dear friend, Toy Burton. I definitely could not miss this day because this is very important to her, but also to me personally when we talk about mental health. My sister was murdered. She was shot 10 times by her husband of 2 weeks. So I know how mental health could really affect that individual, but also a family. I'm the director of workforce development for the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts. And before I even got on this call, there are, as we speak, there are notices being put on people's doors as we speak. They have the constable. Soon as the clock struck 12, the constable had his package of letters and he was taking them door to door like they was Christmas presents. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable in this time. We have to really think differently. And I can understand the stress that all of us on this screen are dealing with, because we're dealing with those individuals and they come to us as leaders to help to solve some of those problems. So, I'm here for the conversation, but I think this is really needed at this time. And Dr. Brandy knows through George Floyd, through Amy Cooper, through COVID, through the guy with the red hat, Black America is really seeing mental health in a way that they've never seen it before. And when we talk about unemployment, right now, unemployment in Dorchester, 02124, is almost 40%. We're not talking about that because we're so focused on the elections and everybody's hunkered in, but we're having some serious issues there. And especially when we know the median income for a Black family is $8. And going through COVID, it's probably down to $1. So everyone is using all of their resources, and some of us are even extending our resources to others. So this is a very trying time for Black America. I won't just say just Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan. This is hitting home where unlike we've ever seen before. And when the dust settles and when the vaccine comes, we're going to see some bodies laying helplessly on the side of the road. When we drive down Methadone Mile, we're seeing a complete view of mental health every day. But see, that mental health was also in this Black community when the crack epidemic happened. And the laser point focus that they have on opioids is not the same that they had on crack. And some of us are still, and Dr. Brandy probably can even talk to this, some of us are still affected by heroin and all those other illicit drugs that have plagued our community. But we have a serious problem in our community, and I commend all of you that are on this phone, that's in the trenches, talking to people face to face and trying to help them get beyond the wall. Because there's this wall that they hit, and if they can't climb over it, if they can't reach for those resources, there's a problem for that family. There's a problem for that child who can't go to school, and where a teacher can say, hey, DSS, DTA, there's a problem in that home. That child has to deal with that problem. And he's being taught, or she's being taught school. They're doing Zoom in the same room with their perpetrator. So we have some serious issues right now facing Black America. And we just know what it is to be right here in Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, and it's no different.
Thank you for that, Dr. Watkins, Bill.
I'm William Watkins. I wish I was
Okay.
Doctor.
Oh, well, James said.
I'm sorry, sir. It just there's certain people. I attribute.
If he's giving out free degrees, I'm taking.
You know.
Dr. Brandy, you can get me later because she's in her mind. She said, wait a minute, bro, I work hard for this.
The same thing. I was like, you finished school and didn't even invite me to the graduation.
But no, something you said, which, really struck me. And this is important when we're talking about conversations about mental health. And I say this in any talk I ever do, is when we're talking about mental health, it's also about financial. It's also about physical health. It's also about your psychological health. It's also about your spiritual well-being and health. And it's also about the discrimination you face, white supremacy, and all of that too, that's embedded in our community. And one thing I'd like to kind of bring the panelists in to talk about, because something you said really kind of struck me when you said beyond the wall. That there is a financial barrier and there is a financial stronghold and weight on our communities. And it's right now it's negative. I mean, with the fact that so much of our community is unemployed, so much more of our community is disproportionately impacted by COVID, so much more of our community, when those evictions come, I read recently, it's 15,000 backlog of evictions. I'm sure most of them are in our communities when they scatter them out. And so what I'd like to ask the panelists is for us to start the conversation of what are some of the things and the ways that you in your practice, Attorney Bluffort or Chance with your Second Chance program, or Toy just with your own story, or William, some of the things that you're seeing with, the individuals you work with, is how are we helping our community get beyond that wall? how are we helping, given the financial constraints, given some of the other, local and national issues going on, what are some of the ways that you are helping get beyond that wall?
Well, we at the Urban League, we can't do what you do, Doc. We have to refer people. I'm not in that. I'm not in the business. I'm not even gonna even try to do what you do as a profession. But the only thing that we can do as the Urban League is to provide a resource, and you're one of those resources. And right now, we are partnered with what they call the 1000 Project. So a young lady called me this evening, told me the constable was at her door, and we have an opportunity to provide $3,000 to help them with their rental assistance. They give out the award $1,000 a month. But that you know, and I know that's not going to be enough for the long haul if we don't have the right people in place from the federal level down to our local level of government. People gonna blow through that $3,000 because they was already in the hole, and they're trying to catch up. So to be quite honest with you, to be really, really honest with you, the only way Black America, I don't even care how many degrees that we have on this screen or how many high school diplomas we have, the only way Black America is going to get out of this financial hole is with reparations. That's the only way. We can't even take this moment and let this moment go by without putting that on the table. You can't release, or put it like this, you can't free a group of people and not give them any sort of dollars or cents to travel with, be it land, be it money. There's no way I could come into this world and my mother and father just put me out on a doorstep. Some way, some shape or form, I'm gonna either die or I'm gonna try to survive my own natural way. But there is no way in shape or form. Guess what, Doc? If in fact, say I've seen numbers out there that said $350,000 for every Black family. I can send my kid to a private school. I can go to the nicest hospitals and doctors. I can do a whole lot with that. If we start from that very basic, from where I sit right now, I could take the 350 and invest it. But when you come out in the world without nothing, there's no way. The reason why any of us was able to go to any of the institutions or be in the places that we were in was by luck. By luck that we had some friends or family that had a network and we can tie into it. I can't really see no other way. Or we're going to be in this vicious cycle over and over, which, people will call it socialism or whatever, and we're setting up all of these programs. I'm a project kid from Franklin Field Projects, and I was able to be in private rooms with the President of the United States. That was unheard of. But that was all luck. But I try to open doors for many of you that are on this Zoom call and others, because I know how I got there. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be very hard to just say, okay, here's the 3,000, and then you get cut off at that 3,000. You're gonna try to find somewhere else to get the other 3,000 to keep on.
Yeah.
If we don't have a stimulus package that come into play from any sort of place.
Mm-hmm.
Dr.
Right.
Brandy, can I chime in as moderator? Because what I'd like to do is I want to set some context if you're just tuning in and Will, Bill, Doc, if you don't mind, I think what you just did was give, and with all due respect to you, because there's a perspective that our queens have and that our young people have as well. You gave a perspective, and it's funny because Toy started this when we went in the virtual space around Black men have feelings too. You're hearing from him a sort of general sentiment of what the Black male is dealing with in America when it comes to elements of finances and dealing with mental health. So if you're just joining, you're hearing a slight description of that. We have Dr. Brandy with us, who's a clinician. And then Bill, you kind of shifted the flow a little bit, and Brandy and I were kind of sidebarring because you did talk about the moratorium. And one of the things that we have a attorney here that and Dr. Brandy, you can give me, but I didn't know if you wanted to give any clinical sort of feedback to what Dr. I'm just going to say Dr. Wilfa now said, and then maybe we can ask Dr. Brandy to Nicole to chime in, attorney Bluffort to chime in, and maybe her and Chance can talk about, because I know that he just did something with, purchasing and whatnot. And so there's a lot going on around that. And I think, Toy, I think is very flexible, that something happened organically when Will started talking. We just sort of shifted a little bit, but I know you do have to, Dr. Will, leave a little bit early. So I said you dropped the bomb and then gonna leave us to throw it. But just let me know your time frame and we will work with that.
I appreciate you all. Toy, I owe you. I owe you big time. So anytime you call me, I'm on this Zoom call, but not tonight.
Okay.
After you did all that, but go ahead, sir. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Brandy.
Actually, I'll pass the mic to Attorney Bluffort, because there was this, and this is very present right now, is with the evictions, with the moratorium, landlord-tenant issues, and what that's going to look like. And so I'd like to turn it over to her to really kind of give some context around that. And then I can come back in and we could go to Chance, and he provides some perspective on, his issues with his credit score and then helping others. So yeah, we could do that.
Right. Well, I'm actually glad this, I wasn't sure if this topic was going to come up, but I think it's necessary where it just, this just recently happened. So, well, what has, law offices of Nicole M. Bluffort been doing in this area? So prior to the moratorium ended, and I think that can help communities of color, which we're talking about here is education. You just heard about what we can do as a collective effort, but we all know, respectfully, those things are going to take time for us to come together, make the movement, to get legislation passed and all those sorts of things. So not to discourage us from coming together collectively to do that, but again, it takes time. What I want to talk about is what you can do also individually and what you can do now. So prior to the moratorium ended, I was going on Facebook. I was doing a lot of Facebook Lives, getting on the radio, because I knew how important or kind of how this was really going to change people's lives once this ended. I think initially, or I know initially, there was a number of people who kind of was just thinking about the moment and not thinking about the future, and they weren't really educated about the legislation. They had an idea either through CNN or Fox News. They were getting a sense of, oh, I don't have to pay rent, but that they didn't realize that it didn't mean erasing their liability. This rent was going to become due at some point. So fast forward, let's talk about what you can do now. If you are watching this today and you're in a situation where you owe 6 months worth of rent or 5 months worth of rent, if you are facing a 14-day notice to quit, or there's a summary process eviction against you, I would recommend retaining counsel. But if for whatever reason you can't, here are some tips that I want you to be able to leave with today. Have a conversation. I can't guarantee that your landlord would be open to that. However, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation, because there's all sorts of ways that you can talk about maybe relieving that rent or coming up with that balance. So for example, if you owe $6,000, maybe you come to an out-of-court agreement with him that you'll pay, $500 here or somewhat there. Just keep in mind, your landlord, just like you, is also trying to make it, they have a loan over their head, just like they have a mortgage loan over their head, just like you have rent. So try to barter with them. That's obviously what I've been doing for a lot of tenants that have come to my office with, these issues. But most importantly, I want you to know that there is still help out there. So even though the Massachusetts moratorium has ended, there is a federal moratorium in place. but it has some very rigid requirements that the Massachusetts moratorium did not have. It was very easy to just basically tell your landlord before under the Massachusetts moratorium that you just couldn't pay, and there really wasn't this real requirement, strict requirement of providing documents and things like that. But the CDC has until December of this year a federal moratorium that can protect some of you. When I say some of you, again, because there's strict requirements, and I'm going to just briefly go over those real quick. So in this federal moratorium, it is going to require that you have to use best efforts to obtain all available government housing resources. This is really, really, really important, because if your landlord does decide to go forth with an eviction, if you can show that you at least availed yourself of all these resources, then you are going to be protected. But even before you do that, you need to give your landlord, him or her, a form. It's basically a declaration under penalties of perjury form. And it's going to have all these questions that you have to basically say that under oath you are doing or you're willing to provide. You obviously have to indicate that you're unable to pay rent, but it does also indicate that you have to try your very best to make partial payments and things like that. There are a few other requirements, but those are somewhat of the highlights. Another highlight is that if you do become evicted, you will likely end up homeless. So in other words, you don't have any family members or other places that you're able to go. So I just wanted to make a point to let people know that that federal moratorium is very much still out there. If you did get a notice of quit or summary process eviction, and you believe that some of those things that I stated do apply to you, please sign that declaration. You can certainly find it online at the cdc.gov/coronavirus. I will see if, James, I can type that out for people if they want to go ahead and click on it, but please.
Put it in the chat. I'll make sure it gets in the live.
Great. Well, just go ahead and sign that that declaration, but please carefully review all of those, because if you're not forthright with all that information, or if it doesn't apply to you, then it can come back to haunt you. But if you could try to have a conversation with your landlords, that's always a best thing that you best practices that you can utilize. For the landlords, I don't want you to think that we forget about you in the midst of all this. I know that this is tough. You also need to talk to your tenants and see if you can work with them, because it's going to be to your benefit to not spend all those fees and costs to get an attorney to evict them. So work with your tenant. As putting my attorney hat aside as a person, please have a heart, understand people have gone through things and they're going through a difficult time. So if there's any way you can work with them, you want to go ahead and do that. You also do have protection through the federal law to get a forbearance. Be very careful with that, though, because forbearance does not mean forgiveness. So even if your mortgage payment is relieved for 6 months or whatever, all that mortgage is going to be tacked in. If there's any way that they could roll it on the, kind of put it on the back end, that's a totally different thing. So that way you're not looking at a high amount, but just make sure you're carefully reading the fine print on any kind of forbearance request that you make.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Bluffort. Go ahead, Dr. Brandy. I didn't know if you wanted to give any feedback around Will's feedback, or just go with Chance to talk about his experience.
Yeah, Will dropped the bombs
and left.
And left. So we'll definitely address some of the things that Will mentioned, but I think it actually is good to segue into Chance, because when you deal with eviction, you deal with all of that ends up going on your file. So like if you try to get another place and they're running your credit and all those other things, these things may come up and may appear. And so I'd like to kind of switch over to Chance to talk about some of the ways that he himself went through these issues and how he was able to climb out, and then how he's helping others and some of the resources around that. So Chance, I'll give you the floor now.
Well, thank you. I'm just going to give a very brief background of what I went through. I'm a veteran. I had access to a VA loan, but due to my credit score, I couldn't utilize it. So when I finally got to the point where I said enough is enough, I'm married, I have 3 kids. We live from apartment to apartment. And I had to sit down and seriously ask myself, what am I leaving for my kids? What am I doing to make my family situation better. And I finally met up with a certain individual that kind of connected me to this company, and I needed the services. So not only did I take the services, but I decided that I wanted to also be someone to help others, be able to do the same, because I'm just an ordinary guy. And I figured if I can do it, anyone can do it. And it is possible. But without the understanding of credit, without the knowledge of financial literacy, these things become impossible. And in the Black community, we lack that knowledge. The majority of us do. Most people couldn't even tell you what the breakdown of their credit score is. What percentage relates to what. So for me, this information is very important. I'm a very strong advocate of the Black community. I'm very strongly advocating to get yourself ahead within this corrupt system that we're all dealing with, but especially us as Blacks, because it's treated us worse than anybody else. You have to put yourself in a position to have the power of credit. It's so important. And we're so used to just living check to check. And I was one of those individuals. I felt like as long as I had a roof over my head and access to public transportation, I win. Wrong. You lose. If you're constantly giving your money up for rent, when you can basically, in a lot of cases, pay just as little for a mortgage as you are renting, then it makes sense to put yourself in a position of ownership. But you can only do that if you have the knowledge. And the company that I am with and a part of, and I created my LLC from, gives people the opportunity to do that. And I just want people to have that information so they can put themselves in a position of power. How does the old saying go? Money is king. No, cash is king, but credit is power.
Chance, I thank you. And Dr. Brandy, I want to put you kind of on the spot a little bit, because we heard Nicole, Attorney Bluffort, rather, talk about the perspective of what's going on with tenant, and also naming that landlords are similarly in the same position, because their landlord becomes the mortgage company. So thank you for that balance. Maybe what I'd like to ask Dr. Brandy, and then we can sort of freestyle here for the next 20 minutes or so, is you heard what Chance named, that there's already a system that's built against us. And then Chance, as you were talking, I had this thought some years ago, even the credit system and the way it's set up, and Nicole, you'll probably appreciate this, and some of our not so well-informed behaviors at times, as Chance said, we'll go for the quick sort of satisfaction, not thinking in the long run that little $300 credit card that we just, it starts in college, you know what I mean? But Dr. Brandy, with all that we named, and I think we did take a shift into this lifting of the ban on the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, I think it's key to maybe just have you give a little clinical perspective of where we are, and then maybe we can talk a little bit toward the end about some coping mechanisms. And DeeDee's Cry is definitely an advocate, for staying mentally healthy, and if there is concern around potential mental illness or mental illness characteristics, resources where you can go. But Dr. Brandy, can you just maybe lead off this open discussion? What is the clinical impact on Black and brown folks dealing with finances and mental health?
It's a lot. So I guess I look at it like this: is when you go about your everyday, what are the things that are constantly on your mind? Like, just in a regular day, what are the things you need to get through your day? And often finances is one of those things, whether it's, pre-COVID, when we could, get some, a pun for Java with Jimmy, whether we could go and get the coffee at Dunkin' or, Starbucks, or whether it's we're buying lunch, we're getting on the train. Like just being able to get on the train and having the money to do it. If you are on the commuter rail or you have your bus pass or whatnot. And so finances are so intricately linked. And one thing Chance mentioned, which cannot be underscored, is the fact that Forbes, it was a Career Builder, did a study, I believe it was in 2018, and they found that 78% of all people in the United States live paycheck to paycheck. 78%. So then what does that mean? Let's really distill that a little bit. If you are living paycheck to paycheck, what that means is you have no savings. You have no safety net, right? And so while conversations around credit are important, conversations around moratoriums are important, you don't have a safety net to even fathom those things, because you are one check in, check out. And, there was the study that Boston did about, Black families of 4 in Boston having a net income of $8 compared to a white family of $250,000. And this was a study done by the city looking at, money as it relates to different ethnic and minority communities in the city. But this is real. And so if you're living paycheck to paycheck, when stuff happens, you don't have anything to fall back on. And so because you don't have that safety net, that creates anxiety, that creates fear, that creates anger, that creates stress. And sometimes those things manifest themselves negatively. And it can be overwhelming for your mind, your body, and your social life. One of the things, and this is not a plug in any respect of the matter, but DeeDee's Cry has been given some resources through the Boston Resiliency Fund and the Boston Foundation. And we have given those funds back to the community. And so we are asking those who've been impacted by COVID to apply for the gift cards that we're giving out. And I go through and I read every single application, and the stories of how COVID has impacted individuals, from losing jobs, the stress, the physical toll of, actually being diagnosed with COVID, or losing family members to COVID. Like, you think about all these things, again, it's not just one thing. Because you're worried about your finances, you aren't able to sleep. You toss and turn every night. I was watching on the news the other day when they were doing the moratorium. They interviewed a family who, I believe, was she from Senegal? I believe she was Senegalese. And her son, they interviewed both of them. And she was like, I'm 2 months behind on my rent. And she was like, I never thought this would happen, because I came to America for the American dream and I was fine. I was fine. And then this happened. And I lost my job. And now I'm concerned about where not only I'm going to go, but where my son is going to go, right? And so you're worried about your finances. You don't sleep. You don't eat, or you eat too much, right? You stress eat. You're like, well, it's because it's something you can control. You may not be able to control how much money's coming in and out, or at least you don't think you can. And so you can control how much you eat, right? You may end up getting depression, where you struggle to concentrate, you struggle to make decisions, and it's just like a heavy weight on you. I already mentioned anxiety, and something we are seeing right now, relationship difficulties. One thing that I think COVID has taught people is you either really love the person you with, or you can't stand them right now because you see them 24 hours a day. But, and while that is a little bit of a joke, one of the things we actually are seeing negatively is a rise in domestic violence, sexual violence against, women, men, children. And so again, you're worried about your finances, you have this fear, you have this anger, and you have no healthy way to release it. So you release it on the people you love, or you say you love, right? And then another thing we're seeing too with COVID and the impact of it, people are withdrawing. I think it's great that we've created this virtual community, but we are social beings, right? And so it's important for us to connect with others. But again, how do you connect a lot of times is through spending money. And so you may withdraw from that. And so there's just, it's so wrapped up in one thing where you're so worried about your finances, all these other things pile up and they snowball. And then, you know, weeks from that moment, it's hard to tell, was it the finances or is it the depression or the anxiety or the insomnia or the bulimia or the social withdrawal that's really the issue. And so it is something which, you know, as William said when he dropped the bomb, is that there's a lot of focus on the now when it comes to mental health, when it comes to the evictions. But what I'm concerned about being in this field is what it looks like a year from now.
Well, Dr. Brandy, and if I could chime in, and I'll throw it to Attorney Bluffort and Chance to sort of chime in with us, is that we don't do well. And I keep referring to Attorney Bluffort because I believe you do estate planning and sort of the proactive, but Chance pointed to it as well, is that we don't do well at thinking ahead. And as much as in an activism advocacy space, there's sort of a macro demand to get all that we can get in this post George Floyd period where, you know, the window is opened around opportunities for Black and brown folks around policy. We also, I think, want to be intentional where there are times. Let's keep it 100. Some folks got $2,400 extra a month. Now, the description of that words matter. Was it extra? You know, the reports say that there's some folks, unemployment actually pulled them out of poverty for a few weeks, like the most money they got in their working time, being working poor. But let's have some convo, Chance, and Dr. Brandy chime in as well, because a proactive where you can approach to your finances, Toy and Dr. Brandy, lead me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong, can potentially decrease contributors to messing with your mental health. Am I right? Am I off there or what? Attorney Bluffort, Chance, Dr. Brandy, some financial planning, can it potentially lead to less contributors to fighting against you staying healthy mentally?
But it can do both. I'll just add this and then allow them to speak, is that it can do both. It's kind of like, you know, what people say about being part of a faith community. Mm-hmm. And the fact that being part of the faith community can be a risk factor and it can be a protective factor. It matters the context, because because you can be part of the faith community and just the fact that, you know, contemplating suicide or thinking about it is a sin, that's a protective factor for you. But then you can be part of a faith community where your whole self is not welcome, supported, and cared for and nourished. And so therefore, you don't feel you can speak up if you are having any struggles or problems. So I think the same with, you know, when you get access to finances or any of those types of things, is that it can be overwhelming. If you, again, and this is something I think, you know, Chance alluded earlier, is that, you know, these aren't things we were taught in school. So it's a process you're having to relearn. And with that comes some anxiety, because I know when, you know, buying a house, you're like, hold on, how many forms I need to fill out? Like, and points and different things. Like you need everything. Like I have to give a blood donation too. Like, what is going on? So, and that was anxiety, but it was also like, hey, yay, you might be a homeowner, right? And that's the American dream. So I think it is both. But I think it's also in the way it's framed and the context and the community. Those things matter. But I'll leave to Bluffort, Attorney Bluffort.
Got me excited. I'm all knocking stuff out the way. Dr. Bluffort, what is your perspective on? And I know, you know, it's a business and whatnot, but you go into this or in this business vein because presumably you want to see people that look like you prosper. It helps be in good health. You know what I mean? So What is your take? And Chance, jump in as well, because it's let's keep it 100. Our sisters do well. They manage, and I hope I don't get in trouble. They manage the home, they manage their finances, they handle it. Sometimes we as brothers may not do so well. So Attorney Bluffort and Chance, let's talk about how we sort of proactively in these last sort of few moments as we get ready to wrap up, how do we proactively avoid situations that contribute to fighting against us staying healthy mentally?
Oh, does it matter which one?
Both. Y'all can. It
Oh, I was
sounds like
trying
to
to
us
keep
we're
the
talking
gentleman
over each
better
other, but they
first.
hear it perfect. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to actually just piggyback off of what Dr. Brandy had said, and James, I know you brought up a little bit about the estate planning. So I think on the financial side, right, I think there is a portion of our population, right, who definitely need assistance that might be really authentically living paycheck to paycheck, right? And then I think there are some people, even putting COVID-19 aside, that are still living paycheck to paycheck, and that's because they're living beyond our means. And that's why I get back to education, because you could be making $100,000, you could be making $500,000, you could be a millionaire. We heard Tony Braxton went bankrupt how many times? So I think these are conversations we need to have, not just COVID-19 in particular, but obviously outside of COVID-19. And a part of that is just proper planning. Somebody mentioned it, not planning just for the now, but for the future. I see that so much with the estate planning process. And unfortunately, James, it's been so heart-wrenching for me to get calls for people who waited to the last minute to decide that they should have did a will for their mom, or they should have did a trust for their dad. And they're asking me to go to the hospital to do these documents. And you can't get to the hospital to do these things. Mm-hmm. And even if we didn't have these COVID situations in which I could go to the hospital, there's still that challenge of, is that person competent and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not going to get into all the estate planning documents, but what I'm trying to get at is the importance of proper planning and not waiting till later. And the other thing I wanted to bring up about the estate planning is just that if we do not get our finances in order during our lifetime, we will have nothing to give to our children. All right. We have to stop thinking for now. All right. We need to be hopeful that, we're going to we all want to live forever. Right. But we just constantly get stuck on what bill needs to be paid now. And I get it. Where we're going out Friday night. I get it. But we have to think about our future, because tomorrow's not promised. And if we don't,
you're right, Attorney Bluffort, and Chance, maybe to chime in, and not to make any presumptions, but were you, right before you got the house, were you planning and had a mindset that caused you to make decisions and exhibit behaviors that lead to what Attorney Bluffort is talking about? So much thinking about the next step and not the immediate satisfaction of right now.
I believe I came into that mindset once I decided I have to get my credit fixed, because before then it was just like most people, you were just living a little bit beyond your means, maybe, because we like to look fly, we like to, and I think,
yes, God,
fortunately within our community, one of the reasons, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, but one of the reasons why we grasp towards Nike or whatever it is, Gucci, whatever it is, it gives us a sense of value, because the truth is we don't really, as far as family-wise and structure and finances, we don't have any real net worth. So our worth is presented on when we walk out that door, what we have on, or maybe what we're riding in, because outside of that, we don't have, once again, the financial literacy to understand what we can be doing differently. What we need to do in the Black community, many of us, we have to understand the word sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to put yourself in a better position? If, like the old saying goes, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But what I get a lot of is, with lack of knowledge also comes fear, because people don't know what they're getting into. Well, how can I trust you? And that's the thing. You have to be willing to trust the process. See, another thing with when at our community, we want instant gratification. Yo, let me tell you something. You didn't ruin your credit score overnight. So guess what? You're not going to fix it overnight. You have to be realistic about this. It's going to take you some months to potentially see some progress, because even when you give these letters to these 3 different agencies, legally, they have 45 days to respond. So it's a waiting game to a certain extent too, so in the meanwhile, you also want to have a platform or be with someone that is giving you the tools to understand what financial literacy is, because you can go with certain companies and they may fix your credit, but if they never taught you how to keep it that way, guess what? You're going to be exactly back where you were at. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the company I did, because they give all those platforms. And the attorney, thank you for mentioning what you mentioned, because you mentioned will and trust. We also have something for that. And I'm just going to mention a couple of the things. Credit restoration. We have something for will and trust. We have something as far as for a credit attorney for things that are difficult that are maybe on your credit history, but you're trying to get it off. We have debt payoff. We have a budgeting tool that will put everything in one place so you can understand how you need to budget and manage your money. So there's different companies out there that provide different things. Do your due diligence, do your research, but definitely have that willingness to sacrifice something in order to put yourself in a position where, at least financially, you can become more comfortable.
Chance, thank you. And I mean, I was going to say, are there any sort of, because we're going to get ready to wrap up, sort of closing words, but you gave sort of a resource. How can folks contact you? And Attorney Bluffort will get ready to come to you as well. How can folks contact you if they are interested in getting more information and education and checking out? You referred that you have an LLC, so you are a Black-owned business. So let's shout that out, as well as Attorney Bluffort as well. Chance, how can folks contact you?
I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much. And you can go to secondchancefinancialsolutions.com. And second is the number 2 with the ND. Secondchancefinancialsolutions.com. And it'll bring you to my website, which has all of my information, my phone number and everything. So please reach out. I'm here to help, but understand that help comes with a cost. That's another thing in our community. We always want the hookup. Come on. This is something that your whole life revolves around your finances. So this is something that us in the Black community, we have to realize how important this is and take action.
And this is the time. We are in such an opportune time. Attorney Bluffort, I'm sure I'm pitching it to you. You can take it and run. We're going to get ready to wrap up. Your closing words and how can folks contact you? We're on another side. We're looking to maybe further this conversation at some point. Hi, Nicole Maxey, who's been working diligently. Thank you so much for your patience. But Attorney Bluffort, what are your closing words? How can folks contact you to get more information if they heard something tonight? I just want to say from personal experience, you also, if you have a senior parent that owns property and they're sickly, you need to have a conversation about their property, because there are certain time limits within the state of Massachusetts that they still count that house toward their overall. Attorney Bluffort, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
So the best way to contact me is you can contact us through the website. That's www.bluefortlaw.com. That's BLUEFORT law.com. We have an info page, like a contact page. You can email us there and we'll email you back. Or you can meet us or reach us at our office number, which is 781-593-1952. That's 781-593-1952. So that's one number for both our Boston and Lynn location. Again, we cover estate planning, that's wills, trust, healthcare proxies, divorces, child support, landlord tenant. So we really do run the gamut and we are available to be able to help you. Keep it short. I guess my closing words is that the time is now. We need to start thinking about tomorrow, the future, that in the time is now. We really have to start buckling down, really be real with ourselves and really make a list of everything that we need to achieve, not get overwhelmed by it and just take it step by step. And we do give free consultations. I'm not going to charge you just to give you a plan and let you know how I can help you. So give us a call if you need us.
That's a good segue, and thank you for that. But I was just in my mind thinking that both you and Chance are Black-owned businesses. And Chance, I love how you said, you know, we often go looking for a hookup through the door. You know what I mean? We need to. There's a couple of things, and I'll just say this and give it to Toy and Dr. Brandy to close out. Is that while there's the aspect of the consumer looking for the hookup, we also want to make sure that our businesses, and I'm sure you both are stellar, but our Black-owned businesses are also operating up to par too, and I'm just going to leave that there. Dr. Brandy and Toy Burton, I'm going to give it to you all.
As James, I love doing these with you. So I guess the thing I'd like to say is just to reiterate what everyone else has already said is, again, our mental health is impacted by our financial health. And so it is important that we get both houses in order. And we really look at, you know, when we're dissecting our financial health, really look at our relationship to money. What is our experience with money? You know, is it negative? Is it positive? You know, what have we learned about it? How do we interact with money? Because the only way to really change, because it is a process, as Chance has reiterated, as Attorney Bluffort has reiterated, it's a process. It does not happen overnight. But one of the first steps in that process is to realize your experiences, negative or positive, and be able to deal with it so that you can see a change, if not in your life, in the life of future generations. And so that is very important. And, you know, as we continue these conversations and we move on to another topic, I think it's always important and always something to be mindful of is that when we think about mental health, we think about mental wellness, we think about it from an individual perspective. But I think the one thing that we need to start doing more of is think about it from a community perspective. How can we help each other as a community so that as a community, we are stronger, we are better, and we get through not only this time, but the times to come. And so I'll leave it there and turn it, before I turn it over to Toy, one thing I do want to say is that, as I mentioned before, DeeDee's Cry does have a COVID relief fund. If you go to our website, deedescry.com, you will see an application. Again, we are giving out gift certificates for individuals that have been impacted in any way, shape, or form by COVID. So you can fill out an application and, you know, we'll review your application and, you know, send you a gift certificate. But again, we do have those funds available. As well, DeeDee's Cry will be hosting some future events. So please stay tuned for that. And then now I'll turn it over to Toy.
Okay, am I on? Okay. So I just want to say thank you so much to the panelists for joining us and giving us your resources and sharing them with everyone. It really was important for me to have this panel with, you know, with COVID. And when we began the shutdown, luckily I was still employed, but my situation was that where I work, I'm a preschool teacher. So where I work, I am fed breakfast, lunch, and snack with the kids, right? So once I was home every day, I realized I didn't have money for food because I didn't have to worry about buying food before. Like there just isn't enough in my budget for food. And that really took a toll on my mental health, to just having food insecurity. And then when I was able, because we go on unemployment every year for the summer, we get 9 weeks of unemployment, and got that little extra $600 a week. Yeah, my mental health was much better. Like not knowing, knowing that I had food. And it was funny, me and a coworker, we was talking on the phone then, like just how much better our physical was, how much better our mental was, not having the food insecurities. So it was really important for me to touch on this topic, finances and mental health. And when I was going through my divorce in 2012, I was telling the counselor how when I was going through my divorce, I didn't have a lawyer at first. My husband at the time was like, "Oh, trust me, Toy, I have a lawyer. Just do what my lawyer says." And I got pushed up against the wall, had to get a free lawyer, went to the lawyers group, and they got me an attorney that worked pro bono. And the whole time my husband at the time was like, "Toy, you're not going to get anything. We don't have any kids together. We don't have property. We don't share anything." In the end, he ended up having to pay me alimony. And I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have had an attorney. So there are some battles.
She said,
Yeah, there are some battles we can fight for ourselves, but there are battles where we do need legal help. Oh yeah, yeah. That lawyer helped a lot. And when he retires, I'll get that too. And I wouldn't have had that if I wouldn't have had it.
Toy, don't tell too much, Jesus. It's about DeeDee ain't crying, DeeDee smiling. No, I'm messing. But I mean, it is important that I like how you raised the fact we need legal assistance, but I think we should also have financial assistance with folks like Chance and Attorney Bluffort as well. And there may be two different gamuts. There's the folks that are doing estate planning and and then there's some folks that right now need to get their credit together so they can get this level, then they can move to the next dimension.
Yes, definitely. So if you are on DeeDee's Cry's page or wherever you are watching this live video at, please go to DeeDee's Cry on Facebook, like the page, on YouTube, subscribe, hit the subscribe button on the DeeDee's Cry, on Instagram, DeeDee's Cry. You can follow me on Twitter. I don't even know what I am on Twitter.
I was just getting ready to say your digital director was so proud of you because you're naming all the social media sites, and then you said, "Well, I don't know, Twitter."
But you had tagged me in something, and it said Toy Burton 1962, and I was like, I know that's not me.
That's not you. Oops. Okay.
No.
Well, with that being said, thank you. Are we good? Are you good, Madam President, Founder, CEO?
Oh, so again, I am Toy Burton, and I am the founder of DeeDee's Cry. DeeDee's Cry is named after my sister, Denita Shayne Morris, who died by suicide at the age of 23 in 1986. So it was really important that with starting this mental health awareness organization that I honor her and make sure that she did not die in vain, and that we are out there and we are talking about it, and it's okay to talk about it. We share our stories on these panels in hopes that we can help someone else. So I just want to say thank you to James, the digital director. Thank you to Dr. Brandy, director of operations, and Robin, who is not with us here tonight. She had a prior engagement. And thank you to Tania for all that she does. And thank you to our panelists for being on and again, sharing your resources. I appreciate you.
Thank you all. You can watch this again on the DeeDee's Cry page, and it was shared to our individual pages. And also, I'm sure that there will be comments that include these resources. Shout out to Nicole Maxey, who was capturing some of the phone numbers and websites and resources on there. So please like the page, because there's more sessions coming up like this. Dr. Brandy and I are coming out of our little vacation. But thank you both, Chance and Dr. Bluffort, so much for sharing your expertise, sharing your knowledge and your time. And
James, you just giving out degrees tonight.
what did I do?
I'm a doctor now.
We thank God for, well, listen, we at least I contribute the doctor to, to you, because I was giving out degrees. At least you got a degree, Chance, not saying you don't, but I was making Will a doctor. Huh?
It's all good.
Everybody else on the panel was
Dr. Chance.
Oh, yes.
We did that. He said, hey, Glory.
Because you know what, Chance, the thing from your story is you have the degree of life experience, right?
So Dr. Brandy, now I'm going to start preaching.
You and Toy, y'all are doctors because of the life experience. And so everybody has degrees.
Certified.
Thank you so much, Dr.
All right, on that note, Toy's going to get us later. Thank you all for joining tonight. Please share this with someone that you know probably came into some money or coming in some money and need to do something with it. And let's keep it 100. People have unfortunately lost family members due to COVID. And you may be looking at this is real. I know someone that went through this. And you may be looking what to do and what decisions you need to make. You have 2 resources right here that you can reach out to. Don't do it frivolously, because you'll find your mental health being impacted. On that note, I'm almost felt to preach there. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for tuning in for Mental Health and Finances with DeeDee's Cry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.